Aloha, namaste. This is Radha, and I'm here to talk about our Saturn retrograde cycle that's just beginning today, actually, June 29th. Um, we have Saturn going retrograde for 4.5 months. So this is a really long cycle, and every year we go through this. And we often don't realize how much of an impact it has on us. We give a lot of credit to Mercury for his 3-week bouts in retrograde, but we often don't notice that Jupiter and Saturn go retrograde for quite a bit of the year, like nearly half. And so we're really called in with these particular planetary energies to rewind, to reflect, and to consider how we're operating. Saturn is our sense of time. So we use Saturn when we are committing to something. What we spend our time on is often shown by Saturn. It's where we're willing to be humble enough to do something. It's where we, roll our sleeves up and take care of the hard work. Saturn rules Capricorn, which is this very hardworking earth sign that's practical. There's not just this pragmatism, but there's also this fear that is infusing the pragmatism. So it's like we're being practical for a future that we are afraid of not happening. That's probably the primary fear we have, right? Is that it won't unfold because we won't be here because time will end, or that we only have so much time and we have all the things we need to get done. And then he also rolls over the sign of Aquarius, which is where he is right now. And Aquarius is more forward thinking, it's more about the future. And there's this quality of what we can do with our time. How can we create a future that does not reflect the problems of the past? And since Aquarius is across from Leo, we see that a lot of the problems from the past we're reflecting upon in Aquarius has to do with society and like sort of the monarchy versus the little people. The idea that there is, a small group of people who hold power when all the little people are not necessarily benefiting from that. And so we see big sweeping change can be possible in this place. Now, Saturn's not necessarily known for overturning or big sweeping change because there's this fearful hesitance. There's this quality of, are we sure it's safe? Are we sure it's okay? Are we sure it's practical? And even in his own sign of Aquarius, we can see that the humility is one of the things that blocks Aquarian natives from filling their, fulfilling their full potential more often than not. It's this sort of hidden quality. And so while Saturn has been here since January of 2023, we've been working through this, working through our humility, that humbleness that's so great in the face of, you know, perhaps cockiness or overconfidence can also be something that hinders us from getting our best work out in the world or creating the new paradigms that we want to see. And so allowing ourselves to embrace with humility our place here on earth, but also take up that space, use our time in a way that makes our mark on the world. And to do it with others, part of the humility is that we don't need to be the one who did it with our name on it, with the credit, that collective energy where we all share in the accolades and the hard work is really important here. Everybody has their part and everybody has their piece to play. And so if we can, really drop our egos around that, we can get a lot more done. Right. So that's one of the things that we face a lot is everybody wanting to sort of be chief or leader and not really, having people that want to follow. There's some people who want to follow, but they don't necessarily want to bring forth their best stuff. They want to just kind of toe the line and do what they're told. Whereas what we really need is everyone to be sort of bringing their best self forward. And maybe there's some people who take on a leadership role, but they're really aware of what everyone has to offer and not just kind of demanding people in these small little cubicles to do what is being told of them. So this is sort of our halfway point in Saturn's tenure in Aquarius. And it's like checking in, how are we doing? Last year we had our retrograde cycle. Saturn had only been here for a few months. It had only been, well, not quite 6 months when Saturn began retrograde last year. So it was like we hadn't even really started whatever it was we were working on. And he's immediately rolling us back and having us question everything that we'd begun. Well, now we've got a solid foot in the ground, right? We've been here for a year and a half, and we have this opportunity to really say, hey, okay, what's working and what's not working? This is more of a refinement retrograde than the last time. In some cases, there might be a complete overhaul if you've really been, if there's really a direction that you've been going that isn't serving your higher goals, your higher vision for the world, then this is a place where you might really find yourself overhauling some things. But there's this quality of everything happening very slowly with Saturn. We can feel it right now as I speak, as I'm making this video. He's not quite begun retrograde, right? He's got this slowing down, stationed effect where we're just kind of stuck. And then he's going to begin this rolling back. And of course, it's actually not that Saturn is moving backwards in the sky, just to clarify, in case there are people who still don't quite understand the way retrograde works. The planets don't begin suddenly moving backwards. Everything we're experiencing in astrology is happening from our position here on Earth. We could be anywhere in space, and experiencing the planets would be different. We experience them from where we stand. That's the gravitational pull, the graha that we're receiving, the grabbing that we're receiving from these planets is from our position here on Earth. So when Saturn slows down a lot, he appears to go backwards because of where we are and where we're standing. And it's important to understand that, because truth be told, everything that we know on Earth, everything we know in our entire lives comes from where we're standing, right? Our perspective is what we experience. And that's true across the board, not just with planets, but everything, every conversation we're having, every interaction we have, the work that we do, we're all doing it from our perspective. And one of the beautiful things about Aquarius is the willingness and capacity to explore other people's perspectives. In this particular case, everyone that we know also lives on Earth and is standing here. So this is the perspective we're working with. So when he slows down to such a point that it appears that he's going retrograde, we start to experience that slowing down because the gravitational pull that we're receiving is now moving backwards. And so the areas of our life that Saturn rules are going to feel like they are going backwards. And this is why I do those reports for all 12 signs. I do them weekly for my forecast for my Patreon group, Cosmically Aligned, where we go through each of the different transits that are happening every week. Every time there's a shift, even with the faster moving planets like Mercury and Venus, how does it affect you? Because each of us have a different ruling planet. We have a different ascendant and a planet that rules that ascendant. And that's going to be very significant for us. And it's also going to set up where each of the houses are. So the area of our life that is ruled by Saturn is different for each of us. And it's important to know what it is, because that's the area of your life that's going to be going through this review and going to be perhaps feel like it's regressing. And it's really an important time to look at the commitments we've made in this area of our life. If you're a Leo rising, Aquarius is your 7th house. This is going to have to do with your relationships. Who have you committed to? What are the agreements you've made? Are they working for you? If you're an Aquarius rising, this is your ruling planet. This is you. You're looking back at the different progresses you've made with your own identity over the last year. So this is very fundamental to understanding how these transits work. They're not the same for all of us. And that's why I do those reports. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so we can see what everything looks like. And thanks to my last group discussion I did with my Patreon group, I finally learned how to put the signs on each of these boxes to help people out. It only took me 4 years of having the software to figure out that even was a thing and existed. So some of us, we have a lot of retrograde in our chart already. And when the planets go retrograde, we feel right at home. We're like, finally, everyone else has slowed down to our speed. So Saturn right now is not retrograde. You can see I am in California right now, and it's 10 o'clock. And it has not happened. Let's see, at 11, still not happened. 12, still not happened. I know it happened around 12:55, I think. So by 1 o'clock, we have Saturn beginning this retrograde cycle. Otherwise, he's just stationed there. He was stationed at this 2513 for about a week in those same degrees. And so we have just felt everything in this area of our life just kind of coagulating, like not moving backwards, not moving forward, just stuck. And if it's an area of your life, like, perhaps it's your ruling planet. For me, it's my 10th house. So it has to do with career. And I could just feel the pileup of all the different things that I had to do, not necessarily being able to like move rapidly forward with them, but not necessarily having anything move backwards either. So in this moment, as he starts to move retrograde, there's also that slow roll where we feel ourselves learning the lessons of Saturn over time. His lessons come with time because they are actually about time. And last year, he was in the star of Satyabhishak for the majority of his retrograde. This year, he is in Purva Bhadrapada, which is the final star, the final nakshatra of Aquarius. And this is where we are learning to be beyond our bodies, right? We're learning that we are more than just this flesh and bone, and that we have spirit as our primary vehicle. This is what we're actually made of, is spirit. And the body is just this costume, this outfit we're wearing for this amount of time. It's a big awakening. It's a star where we're suddenly, pardon me, I've been reckoning with some throat stuff. It's a star where we're sort of seeing that lightning flash of insight, like, wow, okay, I am more than this. I'm beyond the limitations of this form. Now, Saturn is all about limitations, right? He's all about boundaries. He's all about the things that hold us and that we can't move beyond. But in Aquarius, we're learning to break those limitations. We're learning to say, it's always been that way before, but maybe it's not that way anymore. And at the end of Aquarius, we're learning even bigger than that. Maybe nothing's like the way it is. It's not just that, that system could be pushed a little differently, or we could do that in a new way. Maybe it's all just a part of our imagination, and all of it is actually permeable and changeable, malleable, including the bodies we are here with, including the whole of our lives that we've made. And this is the star where we learn that. So we sort of stepped into it and really, started to see the ways in which we could break free of our form. And now we're like, okay, that was pretty powerful. Let's sit with that. Let's marinate on that for a long minute, for a Saturnian minute. And we'll start to roll back and see, okay, where did this awakening take place? Because what happens is we have these flashes of insight and we move forward in excitement. If you've ever had some kind of awakening, whether it was, naturally spontaneous, came from years and years of practice, whether it was from like a medicine ceremony or something like that, it's like this amazing moment of like, whoa, okay, everything is different than what I knew before. But then we move out and it's hard to integrate that. It's hard to integrate that experience, no matter how it came to you, because you move forward into life and everybody's living this sort of mundane world, and they're eating their food and they're driving their cars and they're going to their jobs. And it's hard to not just get rolled right back into the paradigm. And so this is an opportunity to kind of roll back the clock and say, okay, where did my awakening occur? Where was I when I started to really see how things could be different? I'm gonna have just a sip of tea here so I can continue talking. Saturn can also have a lot to do with silence, not speaking so much. Not helpful when you're trying to do a video on Saturn, but he's really the great meditator. He teaches us to be quiet and to move beyond time. And that's really the essence of this great awakening, is that the more we get in touch with our internal reality, the less attached we are to our external reality. The more we slow down, the more we can see and be present with the present moment, instead of rushing towards a future or dwelling in the past. And these are the big issues we have with time, right? We're obsessed with the future and what it will bring. And we're also obsessed with the past and what has happened and all of our fears around what has happened and what could happen again. And we bring that past into the future and have it tell us, this is what will happen in the future. We project the future based on the past. And of course, there's some wisdom. We don't want to just ignore everything we know And we do want to look towards the future and make some plans so that we're not just freewheeling in every moment. But the deepest wisdom can come when we are in the moment. So if we can find a way to kind of continue traversing the life that we need to, that has some awareness of past and future, but really learn how to be present in the moment, just like an animal or a child or someone who's, realized and deeply in that meditative state where everything that comes to them, they're working with in that moment. They don't actually really need to prepare for the future, because every moment they just alchemize what's there, what they have in front of them. And this is really the big lesson with Saturn. And we learn it at the end. We learn it in Purva Bhadrapada. This is where we learn how to stretch time and to make the most of it so that it's not this limited quantity that we're rushing towards, but also avoiding running out, that we're afraid it's going to run out, but we're also rushing because we only have so much of it and we want to get to the next place. It's where we lose our fear around time. And it's a very powerful lesson. And we can't just learn it in our mind, right? We have to embody it. And that's one of the challenges with Aquarius, is sometimes things can become very mental and we're not as embodied. And the point is, on some level, to release our body, but we also need to take in that wisdom in every area of our life, in our actions. Now, this is one of the most interesting things about this particular Saturn retrograde, is we've had Saturn gazing at our Mars here in very close degrees for several weeks now. And Mars is our planet of action. Usually these two are not very friendly, right? Saturn is where we're hesitating and where we're being calm and maybe patient, maybe not really patient, because we're a little bit, we feel some pressure. But in our anxiety, we're more slow. If we've mastered our Saturnian energy, we might be more patient. Mars is where we are totally impatient. We want to go. We have an idea, we're going for it. We have something we want, we move towards it. And he's in his own sign of Aries, where he's very fired up. And so Saturn's drishti on Mars has already been kind of causing some hesitation. Yeah, I'm going to go for it, but maybe, I need to be aware of the things that could go wrong. I need to be aware of my limitations. That's what Saturn's been calling in. And particularly the star that Mars is in is called Bharani. And Bharani is ruled by Saturn's brother Yama, the god of death. Saturn and Yama are the sun, Surya's illegitimate children that he had with his proper wife's sister, whose name is Chaya, shadow. And so Bharani really teaches us about limitations as well. It teaches us about our need to constrain and sort of control what we create, that creative energy we have. And Saturn's gaze is increasing that quality of, what are our limitations? What are the things we should be afraid of? What are our boundaries? Saturn does not do well in this star at all. This is where he's debilitated. But from his own place, his own perch in Aquarius, giving that drishti to Mars, is much more powerful. The limitations are sound. They come from real fears, things that we should be worried about. And they help us stop and take pause, particularly as he slowed to a halt. As he retrogrades, it's like, okay, what could we be doing differently? Where did we go wrong here? What isn't working in what we've been doing? And how can we change that? How can we make a different choice somewhere in that timeline that will bring forward more of the future that we were imagining? And on a deeper level, and on a more yogic, cosmic level, where are we still really attached to our form? Where are we actually attached to our outcome so much that we've stuck pins in everything that we believe, and we're no longer embodying what we believe. So this is going to come up for many of us as we move forward. Particularly, we see that the moon has joined Mars on the 30th and 31st, more very close degrees we see. So the Saturn drishti is also going to hit our moon, and the moon and Mars are really joined. So this fired up energy on the 1st of July will be really present with Saturn's drishti. Now, at that point, Saturn's fully retrograde. They're all in very close degrees here, this 22 to 25 degrees range. And Saturn's drishti is not just on Mars right now, it's on the moon. Our inner emotions, our vulnerability will be feeling that the fear as well as the desire to move forward and that fired up energy from Mars. So this is an interesting little portal as Saturn begins his process. And of course, there's going to be many transits that take place over the 4.5 months. And it's going to take some time for each of us to really unravel and unroll what Saturn's lessons for us are. This is one of the beauties of Saturn. It can be the painful part because it seems like it's taking so long. It's like, have I not learned this yet? But the truth is, no, we haven't. The hardest thing to really learn is around our attachments, and particularly our attachments to time, right? Time and space. And time is this thing that we feel like it's like a clock we're always up against. And particularly in the world we live in, that does not encourage us to be in the present moment. It encourages us to be somewhere, to have a schedule, to have this time. This meeting has to take place at this time. This flight takes off at this time. School starts at this time. Work starts at this time. This is how much time you have to complete this task. This is how much time you have to live. And that's really the underlying message we're always hearing. This is how much time you have left to live, but not, hey, live that life now. Really live it, get all the juice out of it and marinate in it because this is your one life. It's more like rush about because this is all the time you have to live it. But then, you get to a certain age and like, oh, I rushed through it all, that's not truly living. So one of the things that we can all learn here, no matter what house it is for you, is how to slow down and really engage in the moment. If you've ever seen somebody who is, very elderly or has a handicap, and you've ever taken the time to watch them, walking upstairs or going into a store, and just the amount of effort each thing takes. I'm staying with my family right now, and I'm, seeing my parents as they get older and just watching how much more time it takes for someone to do something. You can't rush about. There's no choice called rushing about. Rushing about is over. You have to do the thing that's in front of you, and it takes a lot of energy and time, and maybe the vision's hard, and you have your hands don't move the same way. And that's why Saturn is, really shows us some of his wisdom through elderly people, through people who are sick, through people who have challenges, through people who are in poverty, because it's also hard to get things done when you have all the odds stacked against you. If you don't have a home and you've have to move where you're staying all the time, it's a lot. You have to pack everything up each time and go somewhere. Think about just taking a trip and how much effort it is for your everyday stuff that at home is just all set up for you. So just having to do those little steps, and then it's like, oh, we'll get a job. Okay, well, how do I get a job? I need to take a shower. I need clothes. There's so many steps involved in everything that we take for granted. And Saturn really shows us through people who have less privilege, whether it's through age, whether it's through money, whether it's through, having some kind of handicap or illness or something like that. We can see how much more present and in the moment you can be by having some of your faculties not with you, not having everything easy at your fingertips, ready to go. In the world we live in this technological age of Aquarius, where we have this it's not the age of Aquarius, but just that energy of the future and all the technology and everything that we're developing that makes life faster. It doesn't always make life easier, right? You can spend an hour trying to reset your password or trying to make this thing work, whatever, where it actually might have been easier to just pick up the phone and call somebody. A lot of the things that we try to use actually take more time from us, and we end up spending so much time on them that we're not doing the things that are important to us, connecting with one another, connecting with the earth, connecting with our body that we're so worried we're going to lose. We think of everything in this sort of useful terms of how is it helping us get to the next moment, as opposed to, ooh, thank you for this moment now. Thank you for this body now that I have that's working so well. I know that always won't be the case. I know in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, however many years, my body might not be working so well, or it might not even be with me at all. So Why don't I bless it and be grateful for the time that I do have? So these are some of the things that Saturn can really teach us. And if you want to know where it is specifically in your chart, so you can really see how this is slowing you down, rolling you back, what you're mulling over right now, or for the next 4.5 months, I have 2 ways you can get my report on that breakdown. One is just if you sign up for my email list, I have a free email list at radhahomeastrology.com. I offer, weekly emails here where the full or new moon reports will be in there. My weekly stars report might be in there. Any transits I'll talk about. And then I do the breakdowns for all 12 signs for the major transits. I've done it for a very long time, at least 10 years, where I offer those for Jupiter, Saturn, and the nodes, the transits for all 12 signs. So if you sign up for my email list, radhahomeastrology.com, you'll get that Saturn retrograde for all 12 signs immediately to your inbox. The other option is my Patreon group, Cosmically Aligned. I do weekly breakdowns for all 12 signs. So not just the weekly stars report, but I break it down for each sign. If you're a Gemini or Virgo rising, or if you're a Taurus or Libra rising, you're ruling, or a Leo rising or a Cancer rising, your ruling planet is always moving. So when there's, Mercury changing signs or something, that's a big deal for people, particularly of those rising signs. You get to see how your focus is shifting. If it's your 7th house and your relationships, it's very valuable to know where these things are happening in your chart. So it gets, pardon me, if I can get through this. See, the lesson is to slow down. But in that group, weekly, you'll get the different transit reports. So that's at patreon.com, Radha Home Astrology. I have both the links and little cards at the end and in the description. Blessings on your Saturn retrograde, and I'll see you soon. Namaste.